Welcome back, everybody. I need a haircut. I'm getting one next week. This is going to be part two of the ignition upgrades and the valve cover replacement. I'm trying something a little bit different with this video. I'm going to keep it to about half the length of my normal videos, but I'm still going to try and get that detailed instruction that it seems like a lot of you enjoy. So let me know in the comments how you like this style. I did a lot more voiceover time lapses to cover all the work, so hopefully I don't miss as many steps, but at the same time, keep the videos a little bit shorter. So without further ado, let's dive right into this. Getting started here, you'll see that I have the passenger side valve cover off. Now what I did first was I went and pressure washed this to try and get any old residual grease, grime, oil out of there. Next, you're going to want to go ahead and put on the spark plug seals, which you saw me do first. Right now, I'm replacing all the little rubber grommets, gaskets that come with the replacement seal kit. And you got to pick those out real carefully because the metal pieces get reused, but you put those back in. They just pop in by hand. It's pretty easy to do. This part was a little more tedious than on the driver's side. You're just seeing me here putting in the Felpro gasket. There is a way that it goes in, and it's pretty obvious when you look at the seal in your hand that it fits in the channel. You do want to be careful here because if you don't get it in straight, it'll pop out, and it's very easy to knock it out of its track when you actually go to set it down into the engine. So take your time. This is where the fun really starts. Everyone online will tell you that the driver's side is a huge pain in the crotch and that the passenger side is easy. To be honest with you, I actually found that the passenger side was more difficult just because there's less written about it on how to do it. The best advice I can give you is remove the intake. That's going to need to come off for sure. You don't need to remove the heater hoses, but you should remove every spot you can where the main wiring harness, which wraps around the back of the intake manifold, is connected, because it's going to fight you when you try to get the back bit in place. You've also got some AC lines which are on the passenger side spring perches, or whatever you want to call them. They're going to rub too. There's just really not a lot of room. You got to take your time and then make sure you keep checking the gasket to ensure that it didn't pop off. In the end, once you get it on there, you torque everything in sequence to 89 inch-pounds. Once you've got that all in place, it's about time to put the injector harness back in. As you'll see early in this clip, I actually have a different color on one of my injectors. That's because one of the little cups that go over the top of the injector broke. You can actually pick up a seal repair kit, it's called, from like AutoZone, and it comes with O-rings, that plastic cap, and some other parts to rebuild your injectors. I probably should have done a better job initially at cleaning everything up, but I found that like brake clean works well to clean off the surface. There really shouldn't be any kind of adhesive on the lower intake manifold, as that gasket can be reused, but nonetheless it's good to go back, clean everything off, and make sure that it sits nice and flush before you put the top intake hat back on. I found that I had a ton of old grease and grime on my throttle body. I went to the auto parts store and they make a specific, it looks like carb cleaner, but they call it throttle body cleaner. I don't know if it's just a little bit safer for the electronics, but either way, I went and sprayed that on the butterflies, got both sides. It didn't really stick before, but hopefully this will, just get a little bit more airflow, a little bit less junk in the engine. It's a good idea to do it while you have everything apart. Okay, so on the intake manifold, you're going to want to make sure you get your gasket in there. It's got two little studs on this side that have to meet with the intake, so just be careful when you lay it down there that you put it on correct. I also had a ton of crud inside of here. I don't know if that was a PCV issue or what, but nonetheless I cleaned that off with some, I used electronic cleaner, and then I also used some throttle body and air intake cleaner from CRC. They say you can torque this to, I think it's like 71 to 106. You'll hear 89 inch-pounds a lot, and I'm pretty sure that's just the average of those two values. So if you want to be in the middle, go to 89. That's pretty much what I did with everything else. So go ahead and you want to tighten these in like a star pattern. I did it in multiple steps, so I started out hand tight, then I went to 50, now I'm gonna go to 89. So take your time. That's done. I need a new EGR gasket, so I'm gonna get a new EGR gasket. Advanced Auto Parts in my area had the EGR gasket, this gasket right here for the throttle body. As you saw in the time lapse, I cleaned the throttle body pretty good. It had a bunch of gunk on it. And yeah, we're just putting stuff back together now. Just take your time putting everything back together.
old ratchet extension, man. About to drop this bad boy down. Oh, did it land on it? Ah!
We're getting to the home stretch now, so I got the gaskets from the auto parts store. You want to go ahead and put the throttle body back on. Make sure you route the throttle cables out of the way. Don't forget to hook up your throttle return spring. I almost forgot to do that. Just take your time hooking everything back up. There's quite a few electrical connectors that you'll need to hook up on both the passenger and the driver's side. I put a little bit of anti-seize on the EGR tube before I threaded that in, just because that's one area that gets really hot. Probably arguable whether I needed to do this or not, but I decided, since I had new coils and new plugs, to go ahead and replace the wires. These are Ford Performance racing wires. They're 9mm. I will say, while they do fit into the stock wire separators, they're a little bit big for them, and I wound up breaking a few, so I'll probably have to come back later and buy replacements just to hold everything in place. It's kind of tedious to get all your wires to look nice, and this was my first time doing it. It works, but it's probably not the prettiest. I might go back and make them prettier later. Moving over to the driver's side, I continued with the wiring. This is one of those things where it probably was not in my best interest to finalize everything on the passenger side, since now I'm struggling to make it look nice on the driver's side. There is a tube that runs off the bottom of the intake and heads back over to the cold air intake. Take your time here, leave yourself some extra slack, because otherwise it will kind of get in your way. As long as you remembered how everything came apart, this will be the easiest step. Go ahead and reinstall your cold air intake, hook up your throttle position sensor, intake air temp sensor, mass airflow sensor, pretty much all of your remaining sensors. That's just the cover that goes over the airbox. And then finally, I'm installing the strut tower brace, which I will wait to tighten until I get the car back on the ground.
Okay, let's talk about why underdrive pulleys suck. Okay, so you've got your accessory system on your engine, right? The manufacturer has designed everything to run at a certain speed. So as engine RPM increases, so does the speed of all your accessories. Now, different accessories need to run at different speeds. So obviously you have different size pulleys. Generally your crank pulley is larger than the other accessories for the most part. A good example being your alternator. So if you've ever had a car with underdrive pulleys and you noticed your battery wasn't charging, it may not be your battery, it may not be your alternator, it could be that the pulley ratio is wrong. I've had this issue on my truck, and I had to basically get another alternator pulley, fixed everything. So my thoughts are, don't change your underdrive pulleys. You're gonna gain a couple horsepower, maybe 5, 10, maybe, okay? You're not really gonna feel that, all right? That's not very much. And you know what? It just makes it harder on everything because it's being underdriven. So this is a big help for guys like me. It was hard to find this part number, but basically I got this from Quick Start Performance, I believe it's called, Quick Start. They're out of Michigan, and this is the part number right here. This is the correct size pulley for this alternator. This car has Steeda underdrive pulleys on it. It looks like they've been on them for some time. Who knows? Maybe the alternator is bad, maybe it went bad. I know when I bought the car, it had a new battery in it, but the negative was disconnected, telling me that there's a problem. So I'm gonna try this first. This was about 20 bucks. Even if it doesn't fix the problem, it's just a good choice. Get these stupid things off of here.
Okay, this next step isn't totally required, but it helped me gain access to the nut on my alternator. If you undo the 3 nuts on top of your coolant reservoir, you can slide that out of the way. That allowed me to get my Milwaukee impact in there to undo the nut on my alternator. Additionally, there is a small black bracket held on by 2 13mm nuts, and that is preventing you from moving your tensioner enough to loosen and get the belt off. So you have to pull that off, and then you can go ahead, take a 1/2-inch drive ratchet, loosen the tensioner, and get your old serpentine belt off and put your new one on. I did have my wife come out and help me for this because getting it finally routed, you really need an extra pair of hands. So by the end of this video, I was really hoping to be able to start this thing up. I actually had a comment wanting to hear the exhaust after I put the over axle pipes on. Trust me, I heard your comment, and I will make another video on that. Unfortunately, UPS kind of screwed me a little bit. I was supposed to have my catted X-pipe delivered yesterday, and I got all this stuff done over the course of the last week so I could fire this thing up, take it through inspection, and, you know, get it on the road, get it tagged. Unfortunately, there was another delay. This is like the second delay that I've had with my X-Pipe, so it's not gonna come until Monday. So what I think I'm gonna do is, over the course of this weekend, this is all basically buttoned up. If I had the exhaust, I could throw everything back on and just get it running. But instead, I think I'm gonna change the oil. I'm gonna try and install some of the parts so that I can get my gauges and everything hooked up, because I've got a seal kit. I've got to kind of cut into the coolant lines to install a little piece to get my coolant temp sensor in the vertical section of line that comes from the bottom of the motor to the coolant crossover. So I've just got a little couple things to do, and I will make a separate video on that. But the next time you see this, I promise, the next time you see it, it will be running and hopefully one step closer to being tagged. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I couldn't find hardly any information on how to adjust that passenger side valve cover. So I do hope if you're watching this, you know, it made it a little bit easier for you. Maybe you have a 96, 98 Cobra or an 03, 04 Mach 1, and this is helpful. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please continue to leave me comments. I appreciate all the comments and feedback. I've been adding more and more to my Instagram account. So check me out, Truck and Roll 989. And I will have, you know, time lapses, just some stuff that doesn't make it into the YouTube videos, but that I try to update more regularly. So check that out, continue watching, and stay tuned for next time when we get this thing back on the road. Thanks again.